One. All right. Dave Molidor from Organize Earth. Welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you on. Let me just say where people can find you.
Yeah.
Your website, letsorganizeearth.com, and your Instagram page, which is at the Organized Earth, which is spelled ORGON, and it's a big Instagram page. You have a big following. I would say you're an activist. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's kind of molded into activism for sure. By no direct choice, just kind of happened.
Yes,
you kind of have to. You kind of have to.
I want to talk about that. So you do a lot of work and you look into issues that may have huge effects on our health, on everyone's health. And you seek to inform people on information that is usually not readily available and shared in what would be considered mainstream. So take me back to the first time you saw something of interest or of inquiry, and why you thought to investigate it further, and how that all played out.
Yeah, I can just go right in.
Sure.
The awakening started for me in 2012, January 2012. I mean, I'm still a regular guy, just a typical raised in the suburbs American guy here in California. Played baseball, college, minor leagues.
Oh, really? I love baseball. I got to cut in for a second. You said minor leagues. Where did you play?
Well, the Reds drafted me in 2001, 14th round, and
wow.
Out of Santa Barbara. I went to UC Santa Barbara. So I was pretty good in college, and I got to the pros, and it was a little different story. I was kind of just another guy in the minors.
It's a big leap. It's a big leap from the minors to the majors. What position did you play?
I got drafted as a third baseman, and then when I got there, they traded for a guy who is now an accomplished major leaguer, Edwin Encarnacion, and
wow.
And I got moved over to first, and then our first baseman was doing really well, and so I was kind of platooning with him, and then and then I got injured, and then I got into a fight with one of my coaches. I was kind of a hothead, and next thing you know, I'm released, and I'm playing independent ball for a couple of years. And after that, I was in Louisiana in a roach motel, realizing I was not on the fast track to the big leagues.
Wait a second. Where did you play in Louisiana? Because there was an independent league where I did radio, one of my radio stops. It was in Shreveport?
Oh, well, I was in Alexandria Aces.
Okay. Did you play against the Shreveport Sports?
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, it's a small world, man. Well,
yeah.
what people should know, because we're on the Believe Podcast Network, and this is a yoga podcast, and that means that we care about wellness, we care about things that affect our health, and also considering it's a sports network, I want to point out that just to make it to the minor leagues is an insane accomplishment. Like, there's just a tiny percentage of people that even enter into the minor leagues, what would be considered professional. It is professional baseball. So it is a big deal. It means you work hard and you had a lot of talent. You have a lot of talent. So I think that probably carries over into whatever you're transitioning into now, what you're currently doing, which is informing people about these issues that affect our health. And sometimes you bring attention to what some may consider controversial, and sometimes people may say, I hate this word, because who chooses to label this word conspiracy theories? So before we even get into any of that and some things that may have come up where you had to address those issues, let's go back to where we were heading originally before I cut you off and went on a baseball tangent. But hey, it's baseball season. I'm always up for a baseball tangent.
That's cool. That's cool that you were actual the announcer, or
yeah, I did morning radio on a station called, well, it's the Top 40 station, and it was in Shreveport, and we had the Shreveport Sports Baseball and the Bossier Shreveport Mudbugs, which were at that time the AA team equivalent of the Buffalo Sabres, and the guy that announced and did the play-by-play for the Mudbugs on our AM station, where the broadcasts were for the sport, for the Mudbugs hockey, is Steve Mears, and he's actually with the NHL Network, and he is now broadcasting for the play-by-play for the Pittsburgh Penguins, where he's from. So he was exceptional to work with him and
that's
just
cool.
watch him.
That's cool. I always wanted to kind of get into some sort of broadcasting or voiceover work or whatever. But anyways,
yeah, you're doing it right now. I mean, you're using your voice and I guess pictures today, which is something that I'm moving more into to make this multimedia, multidimensional. But you can, as you can see, my studio setup here, as with yours, we discussed this. It's about the content, not about the fact that you can see my wife sewing threads behind me and her big ironing board, probably somewhere behind me to the left, to your right. So it's all good.
It's all good, brother.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So going back to that, yeah. So I typical American guy. You know, when I drove back from Louisiana, I decided to hang him up. I literally was doing kind of a manifest destiny thing back to the West Coast. Just, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going, and I'm going to figure it out. And I ended up getting into, like, you know, back then mortgages and the credit industry was like really booming. And so I started being a salesman,
Yeah.
you know, selling for a bank. And, you know, fast forward, moved up a little bit in the bank. And in January 2012, this is crazy, but I was in the middle of the day. I was eating lunch under a tree. Had my business casual bank stuff on, and I was looking up in the sky at the sun, and I saw a black equilateral triangle, coasting through the clouds.
Okay.
Very, very controlled, intelligent pace. And I could still see it in my mind. I could still see the silhouette of this black triangle coasting through the clouds. And I was like, holy shit, am I really watching this? And as it was coming out of the clouds, it disappeared into thin air. And it just poof, dematerialized. And I literally ran back to my office, the bank where I was working, and told everyone, like, I just saw this, blah, blah, blah. I was freaked out, but I was like really uplifted and excited. I was like, it was almost like that woke me up.
Well, what did you think it was?
I don't know, but you know, what got me into everything, the rabbit hole, was researching that.
Okay.
Because I knew what I saw, and I wanted to know what the heck it was. And so I was researching black triangle sightings. There was actually a lot of black triangle sightings in the UK and Texas and California, where I was during those times of people seeing black triangles in the middle of the sky. And, you know, I think there's a government vehicle, I forget the name of it, but that you know, that's my guess is
Sure.
that it's some sort of reverse engineered technology craft that maybe they were testing or something. But I started researching those, and that led me down to the rabbit hole of everything that I have come to understand now. And just watching YouTube videos and going crazy on research.
There's a lot of information out there, and I think that it's good to be informed, and it's good to inquire, it's good to question, and I think that before anything is labeled as controversial or conspiracy theories, we have to think that we as individuals have the power now more than ever to find the information for ourselves, not just be delivered information mercilessly. Mercy. I'm supposed to be the broadcaster here. Mercilessly, okay, yeah. and just hammered on our heads without questioning. I always think it's good to question, and that does not make something wrong or false the same way as if it's delivered to us doesn't make it wrong or false. But not questioning and just being uninformed and taking everything at face value, I don't think that leads to the greatest good at all times. So I have some things to pick your brain about, and then I like to get in some topics that maybe I may leave out that you would still like to address. But first of all, we hear a lot of talk about the smart grid and smart meters. Now, the public is being told that these smart meters save us money and that they are more efficient. Now, I have a disclaimer because I turned down my power company and their contractor from installing one on my home. Now, rather than going into my reasons why at this moment, I'd like you to share your thoughts and more information about smart meters.
Yeah, you know, smart meters, you can go to smartmeterdangers.org.
Okay.
If you haven't looked up smart meters, but a lot of people don't really get it when it comes to smart meters, and that's like the biggest thing. So smart meters, like our whole neighborhood has smart meters. They just got put on, you know, and there was no contract signed. It was a tacit agreement contract where they just put them on, and if you don't say no, you're saying yes. That's tacit agreement. That's how these devils work.
Yeah.
when I started learning about smart meters, it was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I said, you know what, I'm just going to get an EMF detector because I was doing readings. I wanted to do readings on the cell towers, which I was reading about as well.
Yeah.
And so I started doing readings. I got a tri-field multi-spectrum EMF detector, and it detects the different levels of electric, magnetic, close range, and then radio, microwave. And the readings are insane. They go every 10 to 12 seconds, they go all the way to the right, because it's pulsing data. It's transmitting data to the closest cell tower, and the cell tower is pulsing it to the home station. And so it's constantly transmitting data in the form of radio frequency microwave radiation. And so you can opt out. They don't tell you that. They don't say, hey,
No, they don't.
There's this opt-out program, and you could get an analog meter, and it's very, a lot better is for your health. They don't tell you that, because our energy company is owned by Rothschild Inc., PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric.
You're in California. What part of California are you in?
Northern California, Sonoma County, wine country.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, kind of a rural farming wine suburb kind of area. It's really pretty out here. So.
Yes, I've seen pictures. Hopefully one day it would be nice just to take a trip out there and explore.
Come out here. We got the Russian River here. We got we're close to the beach. It's really high cost of living.
Yep.
Which is crazy if you have 3 kids like me. But California's under attack. Everything's under attack, but specifically California is kind of really the breeding ground, testing ground for a lot of evil right now.
So Dave, for people that don't know, they may be new to what EMF actually is, and also RF. First of all, what are the differences between EMF and RF, and then what are the first of all, what are the purported safe levels, and then what do you believe are safe levels, and where are we at with, in general, or where are you at with radiation around you? How about that?
Well, yeah, radio frequency radiation is not really understood. The FCC, they have their guidelines for what's safe and what's permissible. And if you go to any cell tower, they say on there, I forget the language exactly, but they basically say this is not at a place of human. I forget.
Yeah, there's warnings to stay away because it's dangerous.
Yeah, basically, this is beyond the permissible level for human. So stay away.
Yeah.
And that the whole irony behind that is that same frequency is on smart meters, and smart meters are right next to kids' bedrooms.
Yeah.
So it's basically like these smart meters are basically like having a cell tower right next to your house. And if you have, a child or a pregnant mother, elderly who are more susceptible to radiation because, their immune systems aren't as strong, or maybe their brain is still developing.
Yep.
It's a dangerous frequency. And if you research Barry Trower, Barrie Trower, Trower, he was a Royal Navy microwave weapons expert, and he's kind of a whistleblower, and he's telling everyone that many years ago the United States government sent over some test information over to the Russians saying, hey, can you test these frequencies to see if they're permissible? We're trying to test our technology. The Russians did it. The Russians said this is not safe at all.
Wow.
The U.S. government brought it back, said okay, whatever, and just introduced it to the public. I don't know the dates behind that, but if you research Barry Trower in depth, he talks about that. And so basically, our government, which is a corporation, has unleashed these radio frequency microwave radiation technologies, and they know that it's dangerous, and that's the bottom line. There's been no long-term health studies funded by them because they know it'll be detrimental to their technology and their case. But others have tested it. The Russians have tested it. Barry Trower was, he experienced, so I could tell so many stories I've researched of him, of what Barry experienced, of people being subjected to these frequencies, and like police over there, they call them bobbies over there, being subjected to these frequencies in a 2-hour period, the same frequencies that our cops are using out here in the States. It's called the airwave tetra system. Airwave tetra. If you research that, it's the wireless Motorola system that the police use out here. And the bobbies out there were subjected to that for 2 hours in a van. They were driving to break up some protest.
Okay.
And when they got out of the van after being subjected to this airwave tetra for 2 hours, they literally beat the first protester they saw to a pulp. And they were all aggressive and raging.
Okay, so you're saying that this is in England, the bobbies, I guess, are like a SWAT team or the police out there?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think they even carry guns out there.
Okay, so they intentionally put them in a van and subjected them to these frequencies, yes, which are actually the same that would be in smart meters or similar, I assume?
Yeah, similar.
Okay.
A little. It's just the whole system that the police use, and we have so much police brutality out here in the States, yeah. And that's a whole other story. But he personally witnessed, knowing what he knew, they were doing. I don't know if they were doing a test. I can't remember. I can link the video later. But
sure. Basically,
they were. The point is, they were night and day different when they got out of that van. They were normal, just kind of, peaceful before they got in the van, and when they got out, they wanted to beat someone up.
And this is from being exposed to these frequencies, which are,
right. Which it's not saying that everyone that's exposed to these is going to go beat someone up. It's just saying that when you're exposed to these kind of frequencies on a very, very short, condensed amount of time, you're right next to it, it can really trigger some unnatural behaviors in you and cause some symptoms to form, So, and we have the cancer and there's studies coming out that our cell phones are carcinogenic. So, I mean, the technology that we're using now is carcinogenic, and the smart meters are everywhere. You can opt out of the smart meters. You can call your cable company or your utility company and say, I want to opt out. And they extort you they extorted us for $75 and then an extra $10 a month because they have to pay a guy to come out and read it.
Wow.
Rather than just letting it transmit on its own, So it's extortion. So you have to pay not to get radiated. And but here's the crazy thing for me, and this is what I struggle with a lot, is the people just don't get it. My neighbors, who I'm kind of just, I don't know what to do with them, because everyone in my neighborhood has flies like an American flag, just barbecuing, you can smell the meat.
Well, there's nothing wrong with flying an American flag.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. But, there's a certain sense of that we're in the land of the free and the home of the brave, and that nothing's wrong. That's what I mean. There's nothing wrong with an American flag, even though it is from the British colony and it looks exactly like the Indian flag. It's a colonization flag, basically. But my point is, no one really, we're not focusing on the right things. People are more interested in their patriotism rather than the smart meter in their home, and that's poisoning their kids with this soup of toxic radiation. And I've showed my neighbors the smart meter readings, where it's literally like it goes boom, 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 boom. Like, it'd be one thing if it just, it was down here, maybe a little bit, no big deal. I mean, we are talking all the way to the red every 10 seconds. And they were like, oh, wow. My one neighbor who's a nurse, he's like, well, I'm around, x-rays and radiation all the time. So what's the difference? When I microwave mac and cheese for the kids, I'm around radiation then. So what's the difference? And I'm like, well, but Tom, this is a choice. You're choosing to, there's certain things you can't really avoid. I get it, but you cannot use it. You cannot use a microwave. You can switch out your smart meter to analog, and don't go through the airport scanner. Get patted down, opt out. I mean, no one does that either. No one opts out of the airport scanner. Everyone just goes through it. I mean, that's another thing. Barry Trower talks about that. Those airport scanners are DNA damaging, like beyond repair, and like something that will that mothers can pass down to their kids. That kind of deep DNA, like we're under attack, and no one sees it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because sometimes people aren't privy to information. Either they haven't sought it out, or they just don't know, and that's even beyond ignoring it. Sometimes they're just unaware, and that's why I'm really happy to have you on, just to expose the information that you have and give people a chance to review it. Look, that not everyone's going to see things in the same way as you or anybody else, but at least have the opportunity to look at it and to consider, right? And without that, that's extremely problematic. I opted out, and we have a power meter and a water meter, and it works. And when they tried to tell me, when a power company said to me, well, that's just the price of technology. We're surrounded by all this all the time. And my answer was, well, until there's enough information saying that these are safe, as opposed to the information that's out there saying they're not, I'm going to reject you putting that on my home. It's very intrusive.
Good, right. Good.
So I think yeah, they should do it. So if you're listening, at least explore the idea. Now, Dave, I have a question. What if someone has one installed already and they're just finding this information out? Have you heard of people that had them installed and then tried to question it and change this? What can they do?
Yeah, I've heard people that live in homeowners association kind of places where they're stacked up multiple smart meters in a row, and they can't do anything about it, because the homeowners association is, it's bureaucratic.
Yeah.
And so I actually, make a technology that you can put this little device on it that can kind of transmute that deadly energy into more harmonious life force energy, and which is a whole other topic, but and then,
you do a lot of amazing things with that, and it's called orgonomy, and I want to talk to you more about that and give a full opportunity for people to hear exactly what you do, and you do it by hand, and these are crafted well, and they work from what I understand, from what I'm seeing, and the fact that people keep buying it from you, and you have actually documented some of the results that work for you, but it's certainly an in-depth, detailed part of this discussion that I'd like to have in terms of orgonomy and what you do. But before we get there, I'd like to segue for a moment to talk about 5G. Okay, so again, another thing we're being told as the general public, we're being told that 5G is wonderful. We'll be able to download movies in less than a minute, how great the signal and connectivity will be. That's what we're being delivered in terms of the messaging. But what would you like to share about 5G?
So 5G is based on the smart grid, which is the infrastructure has already been rolled out. Okay, so the smart meters, that's how they work, is they roll it out, act like they're doing you a favor, and then once you tacitly agree, they add a little more power to it. So all the 4G systems right now are 5G infrastructure, meaning all these 4G macro towers you see out that are
the big ones,
yeah. Every 4G macro tower is installed to be able to install 5G. Okay, so 4G and 5G, these are the same system, just a little bit different. 5G uses millimeter waves. Millimeter waves is what the military uses to disperse crowds. Okay, and it's a much higher frequency. So, our current Wi-Fi is between about 1 and 4 gigahertz. That's carcinogenic at 1 to 4. Okay, so this next frequency, they're saying 5G will be between 24 and 90.
Wow.
So 24 and 90, no long-term safety testing. Okay, and they are in a race to roll it out. And even Trump has come out and said, we want 5G as soon as possible, and even 6G. And we're in a race with China, and we have to do this. And now Israel created 5G, and Israel's not now.
I'm sorry, you cut out for a moment. They're not what?
They're not rolling it out.
Okay.
They're not rolling it out. So that should tell you everything. So they're rolling it out, and apparently the United States and China are in a race to roll it out.
Okay.
That's and if we're competing with China for everything, that's not the best thing, because we can see that China is very, I don't know if China is the way we want to go in a myriad of ways, as far as their social tracking systems they're doing and their pollution. But
sure.
So 5G is going to be operating between 24 and 90 gigahertz using millimeter waves. Now, once you get to 60 gigahertz, you get into a directed energy weapon range. If you look at what is a directed energy weapon, it's 60 gigahertz. And so that's kind of right in the middle of where 5G will be, which is very, very alarming. Now, there is some discussion as to, there's a little confusion, maybe misinformation, as to how close these small cells, what they're called, need to be to each other.
Okay.
There's some say they need to be 2,000 feet apart. Some say 300 feet apart, because millimeter waves don't travel very far. And it's not fully known at this point. What they have said is we need to get these closer together than 4G. Okay. We don't know the exact specs, because, like I said, there's been people from industry saying that you need to be really close. And then if you look at the actual CEO of Verizon, Lowell something, he said they can be fine 2,000 feet apart. So who do we believe? We don't know, because there's been no long-term safety testing. There's been no definitive testing that says, you're fine if you're 3,000 feet away from me. But what we do know is they plan to use millimeter waves, and millimeter waves are used in what's called the active denial system, which is the military riot control system. So
wow.
and that's at 95 gigahertz. So we got 5G planning on being between 24 and 90, active denial system that disperses crowds by zapping you with this millimeter wave. When the second it touches your skin, it's like a burning sensation, and you literally just run the other way. That's at 95. So the very high end of the spectrum of 5G is a military weapon, and that's not a conspiracy. That's a fact, and that's backed by loads of data, verifiable. So you can see why people would be alarmed, but this information is not being put out. The telecom, they're just marketing as better, faster, more innovative. You can download 100 movies in 6 seconds. They've got everyone hooked on technology, so people don't see it as really a threat. But I don't know what the general awareness of it is now, because I share the information. I see others in my little circle on social media sharing, but I don't know how much the general public knows. I'd be willing to bet my neighbors don't know about it.
Yeah, I mean, if your neighbors don't know about it, I can guarantee that mine don't, for sure. And the question that, as you were explaining in more detail about the frequencies and the levels and how different effects occur, the higher it goes, especially when it's military grade. If they are installed and you have the 5G in your neighborhood where you are right now, the general levels that because whoever I guess would control these towers would have to turn it up intentionally to get to that kind of level, right? To get to the military grade level. But in the infrastructure as is with 5G, if it's just going at a somewhat quote unquote regular or just normal frequency from day to day through these towers, you said it was 25?
So yeah, 24 to 90 is kind of
gigahertz.
Yeah, gigahertz. Yeah.
And what effect would even the lowest of that number in the 20s? What would that have? If you've researched this or you have information, what kind of effects would those have? Even if it was just floating around at the lowest frequency every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say, but what
we
know now is that the current Wi-Fi level at 1 to 4 or 5 gigs as being carcinogenic and causing, electrosensitive people to be, brain fog and nausea and insomnia, dizzy and headaches and migraines and all that. So, I mean, if we're already there between 1 and 4, 1 and 5, what's 24 going to look like? I don't know.
Sure.
But, I think the main thing is not to bring any smart devices into your home, because there could be a caveat here. There could be a caveat that this won't really work unless people buy those 5G smart, everything's smart.
It's the technology of things, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah, the Internet of Things.
I'm sorry, right? Internet of Things. Yeah.
No, yeah. So the Internet of Things is that everything has a sensor on it. Everything communicates with each other. Your fridge has a sensor. Your microwave has a sensor. They're trying to make it so hey, your microwave's gonna text you, or your fridge is gonna text you if it's open and you're gone. All these things that are really kind of pushing us into this technocratic, transhumanist sort of future. That's what the elites want. That's what the satanic elites want for us, is this transhumanist technocratic agenda, where technocracy where technocracy will be the new currency, energy credits, carbon credits, and that's why they're really starting to, that's where the smart grid and the smart meter comes in, because they can monitor our energy usage. They can monitor everything about us. And so if you get these smart devices, smart TV, smart blah 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 appliances, they're going to know everything about you. They're going to know your how often you use things. I mean, and that information is going to be sold to third parties who are going to market to you, and the third parties are going to sell it to the government, so the government's going to be able to track you. I mean, it's basically a tracking system. The Goyim, the slaves are awakening, and they're going to try to track every move we do and poison us at the same time and make sure they have their eye on us. That's what it comes down to. And if people don't see that, well, at the very least, you can see that this is toxic technology.
Yeah.
And radiating technology. So if you don't see the deeper picture here, the more esoteric, you can at least see that this is unsafe. And our privacy and our constitutional rights to privacy and life and liberty and happiness, pursuit of happiness and health, are being compromised. And so they're cloaking it all in innovation and technology. And Silicon Valley, the reason why it's so expensive to live in California Bay Area, which is the #1 most expensive place in the States or in the country now, is because of Silicon Valley and everyone worshiping technology. But really, we're getting into a scary part of that, and if we're not careful, it could be very, very detrimental to our health and our future.
Agreed. And I think the one thing that you mentioned, though, is that fortunately, as we speak today at this moment, we do have the options to make decisions to stop some of the things that may be harmful to us by just being aware and not getting certain technology if we choose. Right? We still have choices that we can make. But,
right.
So it's not 100% coming at us. There's some things that we can't control, but there are some things that we can do. Like we can put I've been putting my phone in airplane mode when I'm sleeping or when I'm not using it. Same things with the laptop. That thing's never even on when I'm going to sleep. If I'm working, I try to sit away from the router. So there are some things. So now, is it perfect? Is it perfect defense? No, but it's just going to minimize some of the things, and it's just things that we can do. So we're not totally powerless and helpless unless we choose to be, right? So we can choose not to be. But again, I want to talk about orgonomy. And one of the things that you have posted at your website, let'sorganizeearth.com, spelled with an O-O-R-G-O-N, which is Orgon. It's from Nikola Tesla. And his famous quote, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Now,
right.
I can tell you from practicing yoga, we're constantly moving around and clearing energy all the time when you're practicing, which is referred to as prana. So in addition to yoga, I came into the solfeggio frequencies over 10 years ago, and I've been using them and sharing them with people. So if you aren't familiar with the solfeggio frequencies, I'll include a link to those in the show notes from this episode. But they are a gift from ancient Gregorian times. to help us heal with sound. So I know you post about the solfeggio sometimes, and it's interesting. What many people don't know is that the music that we hear is tuned to 440 hertz, beginning in 1940 in the US and in 1953 worldwide, standardized by an organization known as the International Standards Organization. Prior to those changes in frequency, it was tuned to 432 hertz. There's a lot of theories behind why that change happened. What are your thoughts about that, and what can you tell our audience about 432 hertz and why that frequency is so significant?
You know, sound like you said, energy, frequency, and vibration are everything, and I think we're starting to understand that a little bit more. You know, I met with I gave an order to a buyer overnight yesterday, and
Yep.
she does sound, and I'm gonna go. She's gonna give me a complimentary sound healing thing for me and my family, which is gonna be really
Good.
cool. Can't wait. But I'm being drawn more to sound healing and frequencies because, you know, just the way we communicate, the sounds that come from our throats. I mean, that is everything. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
you know, when my 1-year-old is crying, and if I just get weird with my voice with him, if I just get like, if I make these weird noises,
Yeah.
like, well, I call him Bubba, and I go, oh,
Yep.
and I get weird. And
Well,
you know what, it feels really good. It feels
yeah.
really good to make weird noises, and he's like totally pacified. And I just discovered that on my own, just being goofy one night.
Sure.
And then you know, then I come across a few articles, and then I make this box where my orgonite cure's in, that's 6-sided. And when I pulse these frequencies of 432 and 528 and all these healing frequencies, oh my gosh, the acoustic vibrational resonance in there is like divine. It's like, you just want to be in there. You just want to be in there. And my pieces are curing too, and they're forming with these frequencies and vibrations imprinted in them. And it's like, and people get them and they're like, whoa, I slept so good last night. I had like these great dreams. And it's because everything's energy, you know? But yeah, everything has been kind of warped.
Yeah, because 440 hertz is not a good frequency.
Right. It's a little off. It's a little off. It's a little off. You know, I have an app called 432 Player.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that yet. So I've been playing my music through there rather than normal, and it sounds a little better. I don't know. I
feel that I think you feel it. It's not even, in my opinion, when I listen to stuff at 432, it's not even something that my ear even consciously hears. And maybe you can hear it if you pay very close attention. But in general, what I feel is just overall, I feel better when I listen to the music. I don't feel anxious. I feel more at peace, grounded.
Yeah. When I'm working out and I listen to that, and I'm just like hopping around the gym being a weirdo, and you know, my own little zone, you know. There's no ego there. It's just you're just tapped into frequencies, and I think really we need to get into that. But
the problem is it was changed from 432 hertz to 440 hertz by the US in 1940 and then internationally in 1953. Why, you know, there's a lot of ideas as to why the music we listen to was put out in 440, which is, again, it's a little, as you said, off frequency. Why do you think this was done? If I can just, without saying the answer myself, but I would love to hear your thoughts about it.
Well, I think it ties back to everything in this reality, and this gets back into some esoteric stuff, maybe even biblical stuff. Everything is kind of circumvented. So everything is kind of tweaked. Everything is the reality that's laid out before us is kind of a version of the natural, but it's tweaked, and it's tweaked in a way that could be unhealthy for us, or could lead us astray from the correct path. And you look at multiple avenues of that. You know, I think that this is just another way that, you know, you could talk about technologies. There's healthy technologies. There's fiber optic broadband. There's wired Ethernet cable. There's technology we could be using right now all throughout our country that they could roll out and promote on TV everywhere. That would be really safe. That would be actually not bad at all. Like if they promoted wired Ethernet cable, fiber optic broadband, you know, wired under your house, we wouldn't have no smart meters, and you know, we would have. But that's not what they want. They want.
Wasn't there a push though? Like, and I'm going to say it's probably like 3 or 4 years ago when the big thing was Google Fiber, and then it kind of fizzed out.
Yeah, you know, that's a whole other story.
Okay.
It's my.
I don't know much. I don't know much about it, so I just know it was.
Yeah, they don't really talk about that. There's fiber underneath most of the cities in the United States, just waiting to be used, but they don't use it. There's healthy fiber that they could use, but they don't use it. They've just buried it, left it there, and it's instead we're tacitly agreeing to these wireless systems using microwave radiation, and that's what we're using instead. So it's like and that's really symbolic of everything, because it's like the answers, the right stuff is just there for us to use, but we have to demand it. We have to make it happen. And I had a rant a couple days ago after visiting my mom, who has dementia, and I was saying, you know, everything that is plaguing us in society right now, from $21 trillion debt to you know, the wars and everything, is like we are causing it one way or another. It's we need to take responsibility because we are causing these things. And that's going to be hard for people to understand and wrap their head around. But then you have to talk about lawful money, and how every time we're getting a paycheck from our employer and we endorse it on the back by signing or just getting direct deposit, we are endorsing the Federal Reserve. We are ordering up new credit. We are not redeeming lawful money, which is something that I have started doing lately. And lawful money is original money. It's not a debt instrument. It's backed by gold and silver, and it's a United States note, not a Federal Reserve note. And a lot of people don't know this. So the reason
are you posting about this on your Instagram, which is at the Organized Earth? Are you posting about?
I've been doing highlights. So I have a highlight called Lawful Money, and I have a highlight called State Citizenship. And it's due to my research. There's a couple guys that I've done a live with, Ari_woke_up, and a good guy who's really researched lawful money in depth. And we had a live a couple weeks ago that was really good, but I didn't tape it. I want to tape it and share it to my YouTube because it would be really beneficial for people to hear this. But this is something that everybody can do. And it's a way to not endorse the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor reserve. And it's a private company that's not anything to do with our country, but we've contracted with them, the people have, by endorsing them every time we get paid. And
unknowingly, mostly.
Unknowingly, yes, right. And so this gets into contract law and things like that. But that's their system is tacit agreement, and you know, you could argue that contracts are void if you didn't know you were in a contract, but that's not how the contracts work. If you they're based on your agreement in what you do. So if you use their stuff, if you use their debt instruments, their money, their legal tender, then you're contracting with them, whether you said so or you're doing it. Your signature endorses it. Contracts with them. So in the Federal Reserve, you know, once they get all this money, they go, you know, rape and pillage other countries and establish central banks. You know, in the countries that don't have central banks, like you know, Iraq didn't have a central bank, and Libya didn't have a central bank, and they want to get Iran, and all these countries that do not have a Rothschild central bank, we've started wars with. And wars that are funded by our taxpayer money and Federal Reserve endorsements. And so, you know, if you were to explain all this to someone, they'd probably think you're crazy. But it's really simple stuff, and it goes back to what we're doing every day. So we are endorsing Federal Reserve. We're endorsing wireless technology. By not getting smart meters taken off our home, we're endorsing microwave radiation, radio frequency radiation. And by kicking our feet up on the weekend and watching football, and instead of doing anything about all this, we're endorsing being apathetic and saying this is the reality we want.
Well, I think that's why it's important to have discussions and try to get them out, at least in this form and in your forms, the best that we can. I just want to touch on briefly what we referred to before about the 432 hertz frequency is very grounding. So it's connected to to rooting and the natural frequency of the earth, and that's why music was played at that frequency. Also, you talked about 528 hertz, which is actually the I'm not going to quote the scientific study, but there has been studies that have shown that has been used to repair. It's actually repaired DNA. So we're talking about frequencies damaging our DNA. But if you listen to 528 hertz, now I don't know how much you have to listen to it, but there has been studies that have shown it's repaired damaged DNA. So we can do things to help, right? That's in our control. But you have these products that you make. Made of, I'm not an expert in this, so I'm going to defer to you, but you have orgonite. You use orgonite. There's a whole science or a study that you learned about called orgonomy. Can you talk about that and then what you do within these realms and how people can connect with these products that you make and why we should look into them and maybe have them to help us in our days?
Absolutely. Okay, so Orgon Energy, a brief background, and anyone could go to my website. I try to provide pages of knowledge here. So on my website, letsorganizeearth.com, there's what is Orgon Energy and what are Orgon Energy devices. That's a great background. It's a footer at the very bottom. Okay. There is what is in our devices, so you can see what is used to make these. My background, how I came across it. There's a lot of history here, but it goes back to Wilhelm Reich. He was an Austrian psychoanalyst, psychotherapist, scientist, and he studied with Sigmund Freud. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, and he also he was a contemporary of Einstein as well. And it's interesting that Einstein actually reviewed his work studying Orgon energy, life force energy. He termed it Orgon energy. And said, yeah, that's actually legit. But he was going in a different direction that was more of mainstream. Okay. And at the time, Wilhelm Reich was being kind of labeled as an eccentric. He was getting labeled, and Einstein didn't really want to be grouped in with that, and so they kind of forked off. But before that fork off, he kind of approved his work. He said, you're doing legitimate work. So Wilhelm Reich was studying the libido, the orgasm. Okay. And his mother killed herself when he was about 10, and his dad died soon after. And he was very intelligent, homeschooled, but he was very into studying emotions. And him being a kid who had to deal with losing his mother and his father at a young age, he was dealing with his own emotions, and he was so he's very intelligent, and he started working with patients who he noticed that they would have disease when they would have emotional blockages. So whenever this life force that would liberate upon libido, orgasm. I should say orgasm, not libido. They experienced, obviously it was for an instant of the orgasm that you're kind of liberated from. Sure. Emotional trauma, obviously, but when they would have, he would study his patients, and he would hook them up to stuff, and whenever they would have emotional breakthroughs, they would have a jump in this life force energy. And so that's how he was able to detect this life force energy, by studying the orgasm, by studying emotional breakthroughs. And he termed this life force energy orgon after orgasm. Yeah. And so he found it had to do with a lot with emotions. And when people had disease, he found that the life force, which is it's part of us. The life force is obviously part of us.
Sure, I mentioned in yoga we call it prana. You heard in Tai Chi, yes. Obviously it's chi. So there's all different. Yeah.
Ether. Yeah. Right.
It's referred to. It's the same thing. Labeled as different things in different modalities.
Exactly. All throughout time. Exactly. Yeah. So everyone knows about this life force, and it's even in our own culture with like Star Wars, the Force.
Yes. I know you're laughing because it probably sounds like a silly analogy, but it's really not, because it's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're using that for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. It's truth in plain sight,
Yeah.
But the life force is within us. And he found that people could actually, when they would have emotional breakthroughs, when they would cry, when they would, because him being a psychoanalyst, psychiatrist kind of doctor, he was dealing with patients a lot who had trauma or disease or illness, and when they had these breakthroughs, and their life force would jump up, and that's how he was able to detect and measure the orgone energy within people. And so he took that knowledge and he started, he made what's called an orgone accumulator, which is a box, a 6-sided box, kind of similar to what I have in my lab out there, where I cure the devices in, and I pump the frequencies and bounce off the walls. But he found that if you layer inorganic and organic elements, wool, and he was using wool and plastic, things like that, in different metals.
Okay.
If you layer them, you can draw in the life force from that surrounding area, because organic compounds draw in orgone energy, and inorganic, so metals, drawn in, then quickly repel it.
Okay.
So you have, when you alternate those, you're having a simultaneous result of the life force energy that's around us being drawn in and repelled quickly, drawn in and repelled quickly. So it's kind of like a torus field, almost like.
Or like AC/DC. Like, I mean, two different currents.
Yeah. Right. Very, very similar stuff. So he found that if he could concentrate it. So in areas that were, certain areas have good energy, he's going to go put his accumulator box there. People would sit in it for half an hour at a time, a couple days a week, and their ailments and diseases would literally, if not be outright cured, they would improve drastically just by sitting in this box. And because it was accumulating life force, and that life force was, kind of like an emotional breakthrough that his patients were experiencing. When they have these emotional breakthroughs, they get life force. And so when you sit in the box, you get life force. And when the life force is flowing through you and it's not stagnated, you can heal your disease. And so he was like, wow, we have something here. And so he brought this to various people, Einstein and other people, and they were like, wow, he started to really gain some traction here. And then the feds started keeping an eye on him, because he saw that people were actually getting healed and really helped, and this was really popular. And he had a compound out in Maine, a whole place where he had his laboratory, and people could come sit in here, and it was like utopia, and he was doing great. And then he started to distribute these accumulator boxes. He had a guy who would help him with that, and so it's going crazy, just distributing. It's not even about money for him. It's just he wants to help people. This guy's a really good guy. And so then he moves out to Arizona. When he's in there, he's starting to do more tests on bringing drought, using this technology, bringing drought to drought-stricken regions with his Cloudbuster design. While he was doing that, the guy who was distributing these boxes, the government told him, you can't do this, you don't have a patent on these, blah blah blah. So they kind of
wait, you got to stop for a second there. So he went to Arizona with these devices, and you said drought buster. What can you explain that a little clearer for me, please?
Sorry.
It's okay. No, I'm trying to keep up. That sounds very significant. So I want to know what's up there.
So basically, he's having success in Maine with with the accumulator box. Okay.
Sure.
Now he starts distributing them, and now there's one. Everyone has good things to say. They were trying to slander him. He had an issue with a newspaper reporter out back there, and a newspaper reporter, for some reason, wrote an article saying he was a quack, and that he was crazy and blah blah blah. And rather than reply to her and say, why are you doing all this stuff to me, he just kind of took the high road. Well, the FDA and the authorities saw this article and started keeping their eye on him, but they never should have. It was rigid. It was just because for some reason, this newspaper woman had it out for him, and so they ended up taking him to court. And he was saying he's innocent. He's not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
She was saying that these devices were hurting people and stuff. Just typical kind of disinformation stuff that we see these days. And so basically he's going to court and stuff, and they said, you can't distribute these interstate anymore. You can't do this anymore. Just, if you want to have people come to your compound and sit in your thing, whatever. But don't, keep this on the low, that's basically what they told him. So he comes out west here to Arizona. Mm-hmm. And he started studying in the desert using this technology. He developed what's called a cloud buster, which was these large copper pipes that were sitting on top of an orgone accumulator. So that an orgone accumulator box that he had developed back east that was helping people factually. He brought it back out here, and he wanted to kind of take another leap into, what if I can heal the environment too? What if I can bring rain to drought-stricken places in Arizona, in the desert and stuff, Mojave Desert in California and stuff. And so he got great results out here.
He made it rain.
He brought rain, yeah. And basically just this accumulator box, and he had copper pipes grounding the bad door, as he called it. The opposite of orgone energy was dead orgone. Uh-huh. So there's life force, and then there's dead orgone, door. And so, the chemtrails we see today, that's door. The EMF that we see everywhere, that is attracted to door, and door is attracted to EMF. So door is kind of like this dead, lifeless energy, almost just like pollution. When you see it coming out of chemtrail, you see like these black, hazy, kind of, the sunset shouldn't be, instead of being nice and clear, sometimes it's just dark and hazy and gross, that's door. And so he came out here and he noticed that, desertification is the infestation of door. And all the places we have deserts that were once thriving, tropical places, we're infected with this deadly energy. And so he noticed that when he had these large copper pipes, like cannons, and he would ground, sitting on top of an accumulator, which would accumulate the good energy. He could draw in the door and ground it into water, because water is kind of a good conductor of life force. So he was having these great results out here, and his guy who was helping him back east did some interstate trading or releasing of those accumulators, unbeknownst to Reich. And that's when they got him, because they said, we told you not to do any interstate stuff with these devices, these accumulators. Yeah. And then
what year was this around?
This was the early 50s.
Okay.
This was the early 50s. So yeah, he had done a lot of his work in the 30s and 40s on this, and then comes out here in the 50s, and he then gets thrown in jail by saying that, you didn't patent these devices, and now you're doing interstate, and we told you not to. And it really all just resulted from this one newspaper reporter who had it out for him for whatever reason. And he never went back and tried to slander her or sue her or anything. He just took the high road. I mean, he really was an interesting guy. Like, he didn't have any sort of anyways. So they threw him in jail. And a week before he was going to be paroled, he died of heart failure, which is kind of how Dr. Sebi died too, in prison. Heart failure, I think. So kind of dubious circumstances. But, there's theories that they didn't want him getting out of jail. So, because he would continue to work his work.
But the information that he did put together while he's alive is the basis for what you use to make your orgonite generators now, correct?
Correct. So there's a lot of misunderstandings around this. People say, Wilhelm Reich and orgonite. Orgonite was not even created by Wilhelm Reich. Orgonite did not exist around
Well, I
lithium.
mean, organite's a natural mineral crystal that we can find in the earth, correct?
No.
Oh,
So okay.
okay.
So yeah. There's there's a lot of people making organite now, and I go to some of these posts and I look at the comment sections, and there's some people that are haters and say, oh, this is just a whatever, doesn't work, blah blah blah. And there's people that think they know that it works, but it has to work this way. And then they say, well, Wilhelm Reich did it this way. And I'm like, oh my god, there's just people are just, there's either disinformation being spread purposefully, or people are really just confused and they're not researching it. They don't know their stuff well enough.
Okay, because it looks like organite. If you look at it, it looks like many of the other crystals. Like I have a pyrite sitting here. Of course, organite's black, but it looks like many of the things that we get that would be from the earth and natural. But I'm glad I brought that up, because I did not know that it was not something that we could just find in the ground.
Yeah, I'll clear it up for you real quick.
Yeah, please.
So basically, so let's just remember that Reich developed the accumulator,
Okay.
which is the foundation for everything. Okay, and so that's just alternating layers of organic and inorganic. That's it. Okay, no crystals. That's it. Just those organic and inorganic, which I think ancient cultures have known about for eons, that you can draw in the ether by just alternating inorganic and organic elements. But and there's also a kind of a flip side, not to go off in a tangent, but if you're in an area that has bad energy and you have an orgone accumulator, you're going to accumulate that bad energy. So it can be dangerous if you're around bad energy. So like that's one thing. That's one thing he always said with this cloud buster that he was bringing rain, with, was if you're handling the cloud buster, be careful, because you're bringing in all this dead energy from the environment, and you're cleaning it up out there, but it's grounding in water and it's coming through this accumulator, and you shouldn't touch it. Yeah. So it's not something that anyone should just go out and do if you don't really know what you're doing, and so that's kind of the foundation, is that if you're in an area of good energy, you can draw it in. If you're in an area of bad energy, you can draw it in. So be careful. It's bad. And that's all we're talking about. There's no crystals. So he laid the foundation for basically just kind of bringing in, accumulating the ether, the prana, the orgone. Okay. So in the 80s, there's a guy named Carl Hans Wells, and he experimented with the same thing, but putting metal shavings and fiberglass resin in like a muffin pan, and then adding a catalyzer to the resin so it would harden. Okay. So basically, you have a muffin pan full of metal shavings, let's just say aluminum shavings, and then resin, which would catalyze, pop out of the metal pan, the muffin pan, and you'd have a little device. Now he termed that orgonite. Okay, based on Wilhelm Reich's principles that, hey, we're accumulating the surrounding ether in this little device because it's alternating inorganic and organic. Fiberglass resin has organic compounds, and inorganic is the metal. So there we go. There's a little orgone generator. There's a piece of orgonite, which he trademarked. Okay, and then fast forward a little bit from that. I can't remember the year exactly, but there's a couple named Don and Carol Croft, C-R-O-F-T. And Carol Croft, kind of an intuitive healer, energy worker, she said, well, quartz crystal has amazing properties. What if we took this orgonite that has the shavings and resin? Yeah. What if we put a quartz crystal in there? Because she knew that quartz crystal has piezoelectric properties, meaning when it's put under pressure constantly, the pressure of the cured resin squeezing on the quartz crystal inside, that the crystal would give off a charge. Okay. And all of its powers would be amplified. And so quartz is, we use quartz in everything,
yeah, we have quartz towers around our home.
Yeah, watches, computers, phones, everything. Quartz is amazing. It can amplify, it can store all this information, it can balance, it can harmonize, it can transmute. I mean, you can look at all the properties of quartz and it's amazing. So Carol Croft put quartz in Carl Wells's trademark term orgonite, and now you have the foundation for what these devices are.
Okay.
And so what happens is you have a device that not only brings in the surrounding energy, going back to Wilhelm Reich's accumulator,
Yep.
but now you're also utilizing, now you're not having to worry about if you're in a bad area and you're accumulating bad energy, because
the quartz will cleanse it.
Yes, quartz transmutes and cleanses, and then amplifies and restructures and harmonizes and balances and all these things, transmutes, all these things. I mean, quartz is just, silicon dioxide is just amazing.
Yep.
And we're lucky to be able to take it from the earth, and we're very grateful that for the earth and nature to give it to us, because we need it right now. And maybe when in the future we can put all the quartz back. We won't need it, but we need it now. And so that is really how it works. And many people do not understand that basic foundation of how the accumulator is the foundation, how orgonite was not even originally having quartz in it, and then Carol Croft put quartz in it, and we have the orgone devices that we have today. Now
we spoke a lot about some of the bad energy around us, or the EMF and the RF, which is, going back to the beginning of our discussion, a concern with the smart meters, 5G, just in general, we carry around cell phones and smartphones, Wi-Fi, laptops, etc. So the devices that you make, which combine what you just spoke about with orgonomy, with the orgonite and the quartz, you make these. What effect, and also obviously, well, maybe you're selling the ones that will clear the sky above the house. I'm assuming that would be quite large, but you're selling ones that we can bring into our homes and offices and maybe carry around with us. So can you break it down, kind of how that works and how we could use it in our everyday lives to help make the energy around us better and make things healthier for us? At least one thing that we can do with all the EMF and RF surrounding us.
Absolutely. I mean, I called my shop when I was thinking about, I'll just talk about how it started. So
sure.
I was, how I ran into this energy and how we could utilize it now. So I ran into the energy around 2014. I was commuting to San Francisco for work, and I was taking the ferry every day to and from work. So, and during the ferry, I would see these chemtrails being sprayed, and I didn't really know what they were. I just knew that they were bad. I trust my intuition. And it was, I was going on this awakening path of going down the rabbit hole and coming to just trust my senses a little bit more. And so I started researching those, and I started really complaining to one of my close friends from college, my teammates. And I said, I just cannot stand these chemtrails. I'm so sick of being sprayed and my sky being messed with, and I'm just so sick of it. And he said, well, a couple I know make this stuff called orgonite, and maybe you should look into it. And I said, yeah, I'll look into whatever I can do to help. And so that was in 2014. And so I learned how to make it. I'm very when I find a solution, I jump right in and research it. And I researched how to make it, what it is. And I was like, I will do anything I can to help. And so I made my first chem buster, which is kind of like a cloud buster, but chem for chemtrail buster. And it uses 6-foot copper pipes and a foundation, an orgone foundation at the bottom, very similar to Wilhelm Reich's cloudbuster. Remember the large copper pipes and then an orgone accumulator at the bottom. Now, but this chem buster, instead of having an accumulator at the bottom, had a matrix of orgonite, which would be the crystals and the metal and the resin. So Wilhelm Reich's cloudbuster, no crystals, just grounded everything in water.
Yep.
And it could be detrimental to you if you're if you're near the cloudbuster and you're around bad energy, because that energy will go through the device and you hurt your hands and affect you.
Yeah.
With the chem buster, you don't have to worry about that, because you have all these quartz in there, all these quartz to kind of transmute the harmful energy. So you can literally just draw the bad energy out of the sky, bring it into the bottom of the device, and it would transmute it and accumulate and distribute it out. And so it was like this thing where you bring in the bad energy, and then it also distributes it out. You're just kind of like transmuting, and it's this whole cycle. Anyways, I made this chem buster. It was my first device And we were in the middle of the hugest drought in California. If you go to my hashtag worst drought in 1200 years on Instagram, you'll see my story there, I think.
Okay.
I was really frustrated with our drought, and we were getting chemtrailed every day. And I was just like, this sucks. And so I made this device, and I shit you not, I had heard that it would take about 2 days to calibrate to its environment. And so maybe the second or third day it would actually work.
Yep.
I swear to God, and I have witnesses where I worked in San Francisco at the time who witnessed this. And this is how the shop started. But it rained for 3 weeks straight after I made that. I'm not saying that the device caused the rain, because I know there were some other energy workers at the time doing a lot of work in California, like doing rain dances and all this shamanic kind of work. I wasn't the only one.
Sure.
I think my device helped kind of push the energetic balance to a place where it allowed for rain, pouring rain for 3 weeks. Marin County was flooded. And I went to work, and I was like, I showed people pictures, and they were like, yeah, I think what you made really helped bring this rain. And so people said, well, I want some, so they said, can you make me some of this stuff? And so I started making smaller devices like pyramids and stuff of using the same kind of elements.
Yeah.
Metal and the resin and quartz. And people said, oh my gosh, I'm sleeping great, and I feel better, and I'm dreaming again, and I want some more. And then I started playing around with them, and I've always kind of liked making things with my hands, working with my hands. Baseball, you're using your hands.
Sure.
And stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I didn't like what I was doing at the time. I didn't like being in banking and sales and all the corporate stuff, and so I really just jumped right into this, and I just was like, I love doing this. I love the reactions I get from people. I love myself, that I'm myself. I love that my family, myself, are experiencing these deep REM sleep that I've never had before, these vivid dreams, and just this overall, we're not affected by any of the EMF around us at all.
Now, these are things that you could keep in your bedroom. Also, I guess in any room, if you have the pyramid-sized ones that I'm assuming are about, if you can see my hands, like maybe this size, like maybe the size of 3 by 3 by 3 or 4 by 4 by 4 inches.
So here's one right here.
Okay.
This is just kind of a 6 by 6 large Giza.
Yeah.
If I can get it in here.
I see it.
And there's all different shapes and sizes. I have one in the lab right now that's over 60 pounds and just ginormous, and that's made for chem busting.
Yes.
But so there's different shapes and sizes, and you can put these in your house, put them under your bed. You can put them on your phone. I make a little flower of life design to put it on with double-sided tape at the back of your phone. I make devices you can put on your microwave, on your Wi-Fi router, on your smart meter. I give freebies for every order to put in your car or in your bag, kind of mobile pocket pieces. So,
that's very good, because everyone's using their, I mean, I don't know about everyone, but many people are using their smartphones to listen to podcasts, and or just to, in general, turn on the Bluetooth, which when you turn your Bluetooth, you're inviting even more than just a cell phone signal from the towers into your car, just because of the things that we use on the daily. Again, we can opt to not do those things, but your car is turning into a radiator more so than ever. So I think it's great to be able to bring these into our cars. You're organized, but what you're in.
Yeah, there's a lot of EMF in our cars too.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Teslas, I think. I don't have a Tesla, but Teslas are like the worst for EMF. People think they're great and amazing. But hey, I got a question. Do you mind if I take a quick bathroom break?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. We officially turned into the Joe Rogan podcast now, and people just do bathroom breaks. No, it's all good. It's all good.
Wait. Do you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast?
Of course, yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay. I have my issues with Joe. I think he's a raging shill.
I don't know. I just think that it's interesting. There's a lot of great guests that come on, and I think there's a plethora of information to listen to. So I enjoy it.
No, that's cool. No, yeah, I'm not trying to.
No,
I was just saying. I definitely have my. I would like to go on the show and debate with him, Let's just put it that way.
Well,
But
the fact that you're going to pee right now brings me to something that I saw on your page. So I'm gonna talk to you about the topic of maybe not peeing, but of something that we have within. Yeah. So
Mind's own cistern. Yeah.
yeah. So when you come back from that, I will discuss that with you.
Okay. Oh yeah. Give me 1 sec. I'll be real quick. Okay.
Sure. I'll continue to talk about some things while you're there.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
So Dave and I have been talking about energy and moving around energy, and yoga is a great tool to do that. So we talked about the positive and the negative energy. Here it's the organite and the quartz. In yoga, you have you have the yin and the yang. You have the sukha and the dukkha, which is the pleasure and the pain. So there's all these opposites that are always working with us. And what you get when you pull on each force, which would be the balance, right? To seek the balance and find the middle ground, right? The middle way is you get to the higher, the greater good. And I think that's what Dave is doing with his organite generators, is taking the dark and the light. And when you balance both, you get the greatest good, you get the higher. One of the things about yoga, there's a sister science, and this is ancient. It goes back to thousands, 5,000-6,000 years ago, is Ayurveda. And if you don't know anything about Ayurveda, I'll talk a little bit about it. It connects us to like natural remedies and some better choices and not so great choices to eat and drink based on what in Ayurveda is referred to as doshas. It's basically a constitution that will vary from individual to individual. So there's 3 doshas. First is Vata, which is connected to wind. So Vata is wind, Pitta is fire, and Kapha is earth. So I will share a link in the show notes from this episode for you to learn more about Ayurveda, especially in this case concerning the doshas, and how you could, at least on a very minimal level, find out what your dosha is or what your doshas are and your constitution, and how you can stay in balance. So I will be sure to put that up as here comes Dave coming back from his speech. So I was just talking a little bit about Ayurveda, which is the sister science to yoga, and the doshas, which are connected to, there's 3 of them, to Vata, which is wind, Pitta, fire, and Kapha, earth. I'm going to share a link, though, in the show notes on that. But I want to talk to you about the thing that I was just briefly referencing. So on your page, I came across something on your Instagram page, at the Organized Earth. You were explaining the benefits of drinking something that we produce every day and it's free. Now most people will think this is disgusting, and I'm not knocking it, but my wife has already told me that she's out if I do this. But I gotta be honest. I gotta be honest. At first glance, drinking urine looked gross and pretty crazy, right? But I did a lot of reading, and I'm certainly interested in learning more. But now I'm not saying that my glass is half full or even a quarter, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and maybe some experience with that and benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. So urine therapy has actually been used for a long time by many cultures as a way to heal, and it's actually cancer fighting and has a lot of great benefits. I discovered urine therapy when I was doing a 3-day water fast. I can't remember when it was exactly. Maybe a couple of years ago. I was doing a 3-day water fast. I was.
Why would you? I'm sorry. It's very interesting to me. Why would you fast 3 days from water?
Well, I was at the time I was speaking with a guy who runs a page called Connecting Consciousness, Shane, and we were connecting a lot. And he really recommended. We were talking about how the mucoid plaque in your small intestines builds up and stores all this nasty stuff. The mucoid plaque is the nasty stuff, and it stores in your small intestine, and it's just all these metals that accumulate and toxic and all this crap we've been eating, garbage. It really just stays in you, and really the only way to get it out is by doing a 3-day water fast. And once you get to that 3rd or 4th day, you shit out a black rope of mucoid plaque. And there's really no other way to get it out rather than doing just a water fast. Maybe a little bit of diatomaceous earth here and there.
What did you feel after that 3rd day when you got that stuff out of your system? What was the feeling that you experienced?
You know what? I did not even get there.
Okay.
I think if I couldn't hold on, to be honest with you, I was.
Yeah. That's
And you
tough.
do
I
it.
mean, we need water.
Yeah.
That's just a fact.
Yeah. So I was just drinking. So once you get past the third day, it's really easy apparently when you do these extended water fasts when you're just drinking water. I only made it to 3 days, and I didn't get to the mucoid plaque, so it's probably still in me. So I still need to get this mucoid plaque out. So when I was doing this water fast, I was talking with Shane. He was saying that he had done this before, and he had shat out this mucoid plaque, and he had done it by doing urine therapy while he was doing the water fast. So he was doing nothing but drinking water and urine for however long he did it. And so I said, okay, I'll try it. And I thought it was really weird. And I was kind of very apprehensive to drink my own pee. But when you're drinking your own water, you're just recycling your own water. You're just drinking distilled water, and then you're drinking your own urine, which is distilled water in itself. It's another form of distilled water, blood, urine. Yep. These are distilled waters, fog, rain, more distilled waters.
I think people associate urine with waste, but there's a process that happens in our body that shows that that's not really the case. The stuff that comes out of us is an exception to the first couple of drips of the stream that come out. It's not waste. It's being cleansed before it actually leaves our body.
Right. The kidneys are a water distiller. The kidneys are a water distiller. When we're in the womb, we drink amniotic fluid for 9 months. That's urine.
Yeah.
So if it were bad for us, and if it were really a waste product, we probably wouldn't be drinking it while we're forming in the when we're feeding.
Yeah.
When we're in the womb. And so, it's 95% water, and there's misconceptions that the rest of it is just waste. And so if you drink it, you're getting 5% waste. Well, not really the case. There's actually vitamins and organic minerals in there because your kidneys are a natural water distiller. So by the time you get it out, it's actually 95% water. And the rest, if you have a pretty good diet, live it, as I call it, and you're drinking clean water, you're going to have vitamins and organic minerals in there, along with the distilled water, 95% distilled water. So it's another distilled water source. And rain, dew, fog, those are distilled blood. And so urine is another distilled water that comes from nature. And so I'm a big proponent of distilled water. Anything that comes from nature.
Can you explain what that is, just for the general idea of what distilled water is? Because it's not, in my experience, it's not something that most people know. As simple as it sounds, most people don't really understand what distilled water is, at least from the people I am around to speak with. It's not something I hear thrown around a lot.
Right. When I first heard about distilled water, I just heard, well, it's the impurities in water are boiled out. I just pictured someone in some laboratory boiling out all the bad stuff in water, and then they give you the rest, and it's just kind of void of content, and it's just kind of plain dead, lifeless water. And that's not really the case at all. If we weren't being chemtrailed, and there wasn't all this pollution, and if the soil wasn't void of minerals and all this stuff, we could really just survive off drinking rainwater, and have organic fruits and vegetables and herbs, and we would be just fine. But it comes from nature. We drink it in the womb, for 9 months. For the first 3 months, we drink our own, and then the remaining 6 months, we would drink our mom's urine. The body excretes waste through sweat and through the bowels. Mm-hmm. Okay. The urine it's got urea. I mean, if you look at, there's companies that actually take urine from porta potties and sell it.
Wow. And what kind of products would these end up in?
Medical products that use urea for various healing modalities. And people, drink cow's urine and stuff. But urine is a healing agent because it's a natural distilled water. It's a pure water. And it's kind of, in some cultures, call it the fountain of youth, because you can literally rub it on your eyes and skin, or warts, any sort of rashes, and it'll go away. If you get bit by a snake, or if you get bit by wasp or whatever, what you're supposed to do. You don't have to freak out and see, you know, say you're going to die if you don't get medical attention. What you can do is actually pee in your hand a little bit. Wait 15 seconds. Okay, say you get bit by a spider or snake or something. Wait 15 seconds, pee in your hand, put a little of the pee under your tongue, and your body will come up with the natural antigen right there. Because it takes in the information from the urine and naturally you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And that's something obviously you don't teach. They don't teach you, but your urine can be used in a myriad of ways to heal yourself. And I learned about this from Andrew Norton Weber. If you YouTube Andrew Norton Weber,
okay,
he kind of disappeared from the scene. You know, he's not really on the circuit anymore. But years back, 5, 6, 7 years ago, he was talking about all this stuff. So that's a good place because he'll have a little more information. But I just dove right into his videos and I took a bunch of notes. I can read you a bunch of notes about distilled water, but it's very sterile. It's the most sterile, you know, fluid we can drink. And so if you're recycling your own waters, you know, if you look at the pictograph of the Fountain of Youth, what do you usually see? You see the cherub boy peeing, right, in a fountain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
yeah, so I guess there's something to that.
Yeah, right. They put truth in plain sight. So there's people who have like reversed disease, who have reversed aging.
And this has been studied?
I don't know if it's been studied by the mainstream peer-reviewed stuff. I think there might be some peer-reviewed studies on it, but I think it's more of just kind of anecdotal. You know, people are having these amazing, you know, healing stuff naturally, rashes, scars, warts, you know, infections, things like that, cancer.
If someone didn't have cancer or didn't have an acute situation that they were using this to help with, is this something that you have, at least for yourself, have you done this, or do you do it on a regular basis, and what are the positive benefits that you feel from doing it just in a consistent way?
Sorry, excuse me.
That's okay.
Well, going back to that 3-day water fast, I was drinking nothing but water and urine, and I felt so amazing.
Well, you said it was a water fast. You said you were drinking water and urine.
Right. Yeah. Just water fast, with just drinking water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yo, you were. Yeah. No. The dry fast would be no water.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. Maybe there was somebody else listening or watching that was you know, as stupid as me right in that moment. So.
Well, yeah. The fast. We could talk about fasting for a long time because that's really interesting way to heal. But someone I follow a little bit, Santos Bonacci, is someone who's really smart individual. He's on a 50+ day fast where he's doing dry fasting, you know, no water for 12 to 18 hours, and then water fasting, and he's still diarrheal. You know, he's still getting out stuff.
Okay.
I mean, it just goes to show you there's stuff in our bodies we need to get out, and you can't really live in a pure way.
I'm glad we cleared that up, though, because if you were to do 3 days without water, I wouldn't, in good faith, I couldn't suggest that to someone. Not that I'm a doctor, but.
Of course. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
So water fast, meaning only water. Now, I'm just glad that's cleared up. If anyone else was on that same plane as me, because I was like, man, I couldn't go for 3 days without water.
Yeah. No, so just water.
Okay.
Dry. So I was just literally drinking for 3 days water, just distilled water, my own distilled water, and this stuff I had bottled.
Yeah.
And by the 3rd day, I mean, Sarah, my partner, we have 3 kids here, and she's a really good cook, and she makes some amazing vegan dishes. And by the 3rd night, I was going crazy, and I was like, I'm not going a 4th night with not eating this dinner.
I understand.
And so I stopped. But the 3rd night, I made a video, and I was laying in bed and I was just talking. I was so calm. I swear my face, I looked at the video afterwards, I was like glowing. I had like this radiance, and I felt like so spiritually in tune and pure. And I just remember never really feeling that way before. And it was just because my body was resting, my digestive system was healing, my cells were healing, and I wasn't processing all these impurities. You know, no matter how healthy you are, you're ingesting impurities on a daily basis, probably.
Yeah.
And I have this crazy routine where I'm doing all these superfood powders and stuff, but I still ingest stuff I shouldn't, I bet, you know?
Sure.
But when you're doing just the distilled waters and just recycling your own distilled water and drinking it again, and then having more of this, it's just, you get into this wonderful state. And so fast forward 2 years, someone messaged me, one of my followers one of my buyers who I'd sold Orgonite to, messaged me saying that he was having great success on urine therapy, that he was, his energy was off the charts. His face was he had noticed like his face, he didn't have any wrinkles anymore. And he noticed that he was like tanning this golden brown. He wasn't like burning. He'd be in the sun all day. And he's like, dude, you got to get back on your urine therapy. I know you did it a while ago when you were fasting. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'll get back on urine therapy. So on March 6th of this year, what's today? This 8th? May 8th?
Oh Lord, May something?
Yeah, so a couple
May
months.
8th?
Yeah, it's crazy. Time's going by quick.
It is.
But anyways, a couple months now, I've just been on this routine of recycling my urine every day, along with my superfood powders and tinctures and Chinese mushroom, alchemic herbal tinctures and stuff.
And do you feel more energy in general?
Yeah, I feel like, so I noticed when I'm in the sun all day, I noticed the same thing my buddy had noticed, that I don't burn.
Okay.
My sun just gets a golden brown. I mean, my skin gets a golden brown. My teeth feel whiter. I'm drinking a little coffee right now, which I should.
Yeah. That's all good.
I kicked alcohol, but I now need to kick coffee.
We're still human.
Yeah. We're still, still trying to shed the layers of programming. But my teeth has gotten whiter. I've noticed my hair has gotten darker. I'm 40 and I was starting to get some grays, and I think I still do. I have some grays and stuff, but it's like it's gotten darker. And I remember Andrew Norton Weber in his YouTube video saying the same thing, that he had come across people who he had recommended urine therapy and just drinking distilled water, a gallon of distilled water a day, and they have said the same thing, that their skin is better, their teeth is better, they feel better, loads of energy, their hair gets darker. And in 2 months, I've noticed the same effects, and my skin is this like golden brown. Of just like I just like how I feel. I like how I look, and as long as you're not dehydrated, you don't want to drink brown orange pee. It looks like a glow stick. You won't get dehydrated.
I don't think anyone's going to drink that. I mean, if they're struggling to even get over the concept of drinking their own urine, certainly if it's coming out brown, they might even think even further not to.
Yeah, you want your urine to be mostly clear.
Yeah.
Maybe a little tinge of light yellow, which is how mine looks. And if it doesn't, then I'm like, hey, I've been working in the sun too long. I need to drink more water. And then but it doesn't taste bad. You get used to it. It just tastes like water with like this little, like if you were to drop some popcorn in water and just let the popcorn sit there for a little bit.
Okay.
It's kind of this weird little taste that it's not that bad. You just kind of get used to. But yeah, I get people commenting saying, dude, you drink your own piss? And I don't reply, because if that's their question, then we're not at the same frequency yet, so it's not even worth getting into. But
that's probably a good idea. But honestly, I mean, I'm glad we spoke about this, because it goes back to the beginning of our conversation, which is we don't know everything. So whatever we understand to be normal, or whatever we've been told, what does it hurt to find information when we've never had a chance in our history to connect with more information that's available than ever? Now we have, at that same token, we have to decipher what's good information, what's bad information, but we do have the opportunity to investigate for ourselves. So I think it's very important. And I'm sure there's some people watching, listening, that are like, ooh, like, my wife saying, whoa, like, that's gross, I can't do that. But at the same time, what if one of those people, or a handful of those people or more, decide to, you know what, it sounds gross, it sounds crazy, but I heard Dave talk about it, and I want to at least do my own inquiry. And I think that's really the most important thing that we can take away from this whole interview, is to inquire constantly and do it until you're satisfied, not because someone tells you that you're satisfied.
Correct. Exactly. Just bring forth the information. We're still at a time where we're not getting completely censored, and we can get this information out. They are starting to censor everything now, especially when it comes to vaccines and a lot of other topics, but we can still get the information out. We still have our channels to do that. And it's a great time. It's a really exciting time because the information is flowing. Sometimes I feel a little bit overwhelmed with how much information is coming out.
It's intense.
I'm receiving. Yeah, it is intense. And once you're at a certain frequency where you're open to new information, and you're connecting with people who are feeding you the information, and you're clear-headed, and your spiritual intelligence and guidance is putting you on the path of the same vibrational resonance as other spiritually intelligent people who are on the same wavelength. It's just an amazing thing. And it sounds really woo-woo, new age.
No, not really.
Maybe it does to some people. I'm sure they're, but I am just so happy right now. I'm so fortunate. There's so many dark things happening right now that is really scary. But at the same time, it's this incredibly exciting time, because this information that has been covered and suppressed for so long is rising to the surface right now.
Yeah, it certainly feels like we're on the precipice of something major and transformational. We're getting closer by the day, so looking forward to that. So I'm happy to connect with you, Dave Molidor from Organized Earth, the website, let'sorganizeearth.com, the Instagram, The Organized Earth, spelled ORGONIZED Earth. It's been a pleasure to have you. I really would like everyone listening to explore the Organite generators at your website, let'sorganizeearth.com. And man, if you ever want to come back on and share more information, because I know we didn't even scratch the surface on so many things that you address, feel free to reach out and come back on. I'd love to have you back.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. And there's more to discuss. Absolutely. I'm game anytime. This is what is beneficial. This is how I learn, is by watching videos like these. And so I'm sure other people will learn as well. And it's all a journey. And I'm really fortunate and glad to connect with you, brother. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dave Molidor. Maybe we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Sounds good.